Hello, saver. Whether you're saving for that trip to the tropics or saving for an emergency, now is the time to take advantage of Wells Fargo's savings options. Wells Fargo offers savings accounts that can help you save towards your goals. So, what are you saving for? Visit a Wells Fargo branch or wellsfargo.com/save to open a savings account today.
Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
So our podcast is called Right and Wrong.
Are these your notes?
These
These are your notes about what we're going to say?
Anything.
Nailed it.
Is the short answer.
So how many novels did you not finish?
Oh my God, so many.
It was perfect. What's she talking about? This is nonsense.
Ooh, a spicy question. I love it.
This is it, guys. The big secret to getting published is you have to write a good book. You heard it here first. Hello, and welcome back to the Right and Wrong podcast. On this week's episode, I'm joined by a TV and film writer whose debut novel, Hotel 21, is coming out imminently. It's Senta Rich. Hi, Senta. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jeremy. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks for coming
excited. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, I was going to say, it must be very exciting. Your first book coming out. How are you feeling about everything?
Yeah, well, it takes a long time to publish a book. So I would have got the book deal 2 years ago, and it's taken that long. So it's been, to be honest, for a while there, you wonder if you're going to make it, like you're actually going to get there. So it's very close now, and now it's coming like a freight train. But yeah, no, it's great. And of course, it's very exciting.
Yes. As of us recording this right now, it's not out, but it will be by the time this airs. I know that you used to work in advertising. So how is your no spoiler pitch for the book?
Yeah, well, it is. Okay, so it's about a young woman called Noelle, who's a hotel cleaner, but also a kleptomaniac. But she's not your regular kleptomaniac. She also, she only takes small and insignificant things that she hopes nobody will notice are missing. And that's until she starts her 21st hotel cleaning job, when she meets a group of, she's teamed up with a group of diverse, strong women who begin to challenge the way that she lives and who she is. And so going from hotel to hotel, it's quite a nomadic, isolated, lonely life that she doesn't even realize that she's living. And these women kind of shake her up and electrify her a bit and bring her into the land of the living, maybe. You could say. So that's her journey.
Amazing. I think that was a great elevator pitch.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I really like how in the book, sort of when she moves between hotels, she writes a very sort of a handwritten kind of list of all the things that she's taken.
Yeah,
which is a really nice touch in the book. Was that something that you had in there, like from your kind of early drafts, or was it added in later?
No, it was there from early drafts. It was very much, because I had the idea for the book when I stayed in a small hotel in Lisbon, and I annoyed the hotel cleaner by accident by leaving my hotel room really late. When she was waiting outside with her arms crossed, waiting for me to leave, and I felt really awful. And she gave me a dirty look, and quite right too. I probably ruined her day without realizing it. Anyway, I went out. When I came back that evening, my hairbrush was missing, and I immediately was like, "Oh, it was a revenge lift. She took my hairbrush to piss me off, And I just started thinking about this character, what she took, why did she do it? Did she do it a lot? Does she only take hairbrushes? This kind of thing. And and then I started thinking, well, maybe, and she also had power. She had this power over me. By taking my hairbrush, it kind of really, it's kind of quite an inconvenience. And it's also not something you're going to complain about. You're not going to say my second-hand hairbrush has gone missing. Yeah. They'd laugh at you, right? So I thought, she's really clever. She's done this really well. And then I started thinking, well, she has power over me. Maybe she doesn't have, because she wants power over her own life. So anyway, I started thinking about this first as a TV series, maybe, or as a character, a hero for a screenplay. But then I don't really know why, but I wrote it in first person and I started writing the book. But the lists thing was very much part of the control she has over her life. So she can look at everything she's done. She can go back over it. And she keeps the things that she takes, which are small, they don't really matter to anyone, but they matter to her. She keeps them like religious relics almost. And for her, when she sees them and she looks through her notebook, it just means that her life for her is working. She exists. Look what she's doing, and everything's fine. When it so isn't. When it so isn't. But I think we all have our trunks, Jamie.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And people always say writing lists is like a healthy way to kind of be more productive and things like that. So I guess.
Oh, do they? Yeah. I mean,
anti-productive way.
I mean, as a as a teenager, I kept a day-by-day diary, and I think, it's just kind of, a record of everything you're doing. And and it really mattered to me that it mattered to her, that these things mattered to her, if you know what I mean. So she didn't just get them and shove them in a drawer or stick them somewhere or throw them away. She had to keep them, and she had to care about them. You know,
like her trophies.
Yeah. More like evidence of her of her existence or something, because she had she's been in survival mode since she was a child. So this is all part of that survival resilience.
I was going to ask, and you already mentioned it, whether this was or not going to be, because that's a really great origin for like the kind of inception of this idea. But I was going to ask whether, given your background, this was originally going to be for television or film or written in screenplay form.
Yeah, well, it wasn't originally going to be that, but that would have been my first port of call, thinking about this character. That's the first place that my brain will go. So for a couple of days, it was going around inside my head, and I was still away, and I just read a first-person short book, and I thought, what if I could do it like that? And I just tried it. I wrote the first 4,000 words. So I picked up my notepad, which was beside me. I put the book down. I read it very quickly in a couple of hours. I put the book down, wrote the first 4,000 words, typed them up immediately because my handwriting's appalling. If I don't do that, I won't be able to read my own handwriting. So I did it very quickly, and then I gave it to my son and my husband to read. And my son was the big test, because I said, just read the first page, because he was 16 at the time. And, he reads everything I write, poor chap. I kind of make him. And I said, look, you only need to read the first page, but he read all of it. And I went, I might be onto something here. And he said, I really like that, Mum. And then my husband read it, said, yeah, I really think you should keep writing that. So I just did. I mean, writers, whatever happens to us, we just write things. We don't know where they're going to go or if anyone's going to want them, So you go off on this journey, but I really wanted to go on this journey with Noelle. She really, really fascinated me. And I wanted to know more about her and explore it. And it was really liberating that it wasn't a script, that it was first person. And it just felt really, really, really freeing. I mean, maybe novelists that write screenplays have different kind of feeling of freedom. I don't know, but it really was. I don't have to worry who she needs to talk to. I don't know, she's just going to tell us what's going on. And, but obviously it's from her point of view and her way of viewing the world. So yeah, it was quite a frenzied write. But I really enjoyed it because I wrote the very first time I wrote in like continuous stream of consciousness, because it was the only way I could keep the energy and the pace. So I just wrote it how she was talking, and that's how I wrote the whole book. And when it went to my agent the first time, one of the first things she said was, "You're going to have to write this like a proper book and take the dialogue, take out the dialogue and put it in on like its own page and things like that." And that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do, actually, because I was quite afraid that I would lose the sense and the pace, but I didn't. I didn't. It was fine. So yeah, like I didn't have speech marks, you see, just to start with.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
But it's exactly the way that it was. It's just some of the dialogue is broken out.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same piece of writing. It was just the format.
Yes.
Yeah. And some
Formatting
of it's still in
structure.
there. Yeah. And you can still see some of it, the original style of the original draft. You can still see some of it still in there. But obviously it's not all of it.
Yeah.
So I kept it whenever I could.
Wherever it made sense to keep it, I'm guessing.
Yes. Especially if it's dialogue that you want to know that somebody said this and said that, but you don't necessarily want to put it on the dialogue line because it doesn't really warrant its own dialogue line. It's not really important enough.
Yeah.
So you want to say something, and sometimes it's nice just to say, Marley said this and I said no.
Yeah. Was that all done with your editor? Was that the kind of back and forth once it was already sort of under contract and you were working with an editor?
Well, that was done before it went to the publishers.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did that with my agent, very smart lady, Marianne Gunn O'Connor, and she said, "Listen, you're going to have to break it out." So that was fine. Yeah. So, but it did take me quite a while. It took me, I don't know, a while to do that. I think it was gnarly. It's probably the right word for it. So I tend to write like regularly, daily. 9:30 to 6 is kind of my routine. But when you're doing something like that all day, you end up with a headache at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's draining. It's kind of emotionally draining as well. Just kind of going over your same words and things.
Yeah, just trying to keep the pace. Yeah.
Was there a second sort of editing phase that happened once you were working with the publisher?
Yes, well, also with the agent, before it went to the publishers, I'd written quite a short book. I'd been aiming for 45,000 words because I thought if I write a short book, I probably won't bore anybody with a short book. And because I hadn't written a book, and I've always thought I've never really wanted to write a book before. I love books, reading, but it's never really been something I've been drawn to. So I wrote quite a short book. It was 65,000 words, but she said, it's got to be 80. It's got to be 85, so you've got to add like 20,000 words. I was quite pleased because I thought, well, she wants to read another 20,000 words. Great. So I quite enjoyed that. I added. And then then we got the publishing deal, Bloomsbury, and the editing process then. They wanted to see, more of the women, the team, and they just wanted to see more of the hotel. And so the notes were actually really lovely because I was like, well, I really would love to write that. So I had to do that. So the novel's now 90,000 words, but even though I was adding, I still had to take stuff away. So that was, but I don't find that hard. With screenwriting, you rewrite, edit all the time. So you really can't get too attached you have to be quite brutal and say, well, this actually isn't adding that much. I like it and it was hard to write and I did this, but at the end of the day, I really don't need it.
Yeah, because I imagine with screenwriting, stuff gets cut even after it's sort of filmed and like ready to go, you go to the editing room and then large amounts of film often just don't end up making it into the final product or whatever it is.
Yeah. And, they're probably the right decisions.
Yeah.
Like less is always more, that's true of screenwriting and it's true in the advertising world. And it's not always true in novel writing. But I think, you can, I love big tomes of books that I can just get lost in for weeks, and sometimes maybe they could have been edited a bit, but why if you're enjoying it so much?
Yeah, exactly.
But a screenplay, you can't really have 3 hour, 4 hour. Well,
tell that to the Batman.
Exactly, but they are separate stories, aren't they? But as a rule, if there are rules or for the art form of screenwriting, it's 90 pages to 110 pages, really. And you don't really go over that unless you're James Cameron, then you write whatever you want.
Or I heard Martin Scorsese's new movie might be 4 hours long.
Really?
Yeah, I read that online, so I don't know if it's 100%
Well, Martin
trustworthy.
Scorsese is known for not letting his movies out of the editing suite. Like he has to have them prized out of his hands.
Oh, okay.
He said that I've been to Q&A with him, and he says he'll just keep editing until someone comes in and says we need it now, and he just has to hand over what he had. So I can't wait to see that. I bet that's amazing. I mean, if someone's going to do a 4-hour film, it'd be Martin Scorsese,
Yeah. Had to be one of those old legends.
Yeah.
Let's get back to you.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can. In the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.
So based on what you were talking about there, it sounded slightly frantic, the first draft of this novel. Am I right in thinking then that you are what we would call a pantser or a discovery writer?
A what writer? What's the first one?
So a pantser.
A pantser? What's that?
Yeah, as in flying by the seat of your pants.
Oh, a pantser. Nice. Or a discovery writer.
So that's the fancy way of that's what George R.R. Martin calls it, discovery writing, where there's kind of a very vague plan, but you're just kind of going with the flow and the story kind of finds itself. You find the story as you write it.
And the pantser is just winging it.
Sorry, those
from
are the
day
same.
one.
Those they're kind of the same. It's
right.
planner versus pantser.
Planner versus pantser. Okay. Well, I think probably I'm a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
When I sat down to write even the first 4,000 words of Hotel 21, I already knew instinctively what I was going to do, that there was going to be this woman with a problem and she would start at the hotel, and it was at this hotel she would meet somebody. This was very rough, that she would meet somebody and it was going to cause her a problem, and this is what was going to cause change and transformation, and that was all I knew. But and that I was going to tell it in a short space of time. So it wasn't an epic novel. It was, we pick up the character of Noelle at the moment that she's in the most crisis, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I knew. So I knew roughly what my milestones were going to be, but I didn't know who the people were going to be in Hotel 21 at that point, and I wasn't entirely sure how her past was going to pan out, but I did have a feeling about who she was and where she was at that moment. So I enjoyed finding out about her. But I mean, so I didn't write down a structure or anything like that.
Yeah.
Now with screenplays, you would have the same. You have an idea. Okay, so this person, this is going to happen. Great, that's definitely a story in there somewhere. But with screenplays, you do have to plan a lot more. So I enjoyed writing the novel where I didn't have to do the same level of it, because screenwriters, one of the big problems for screenwriters, especially new screenwriters, with that you jump in really quickly straight away. You just want to get in and start writing. You've had an idea of an opening scene and and then before you know it, you dry up and you're like, oh. So with screenwriting, it's really important to plan. So, but with this book, I just knew I didn't have to do that. I had more freedom. Yeah, I had a bit more freedom. Yeah.
Well, you just have a lot more control because you are sort of in control of every single aspect of it. Whereas, I don't have much experience with screenwriting, but just having seen some screenplays and things like that, there's you're not just writing the story of the things that happen. You're writing sort of a few directions here and there. You need to bring in different characters. The dialogue needs to drive the whole thing. If you're going to have an inner monologue, that's like that's like an external inner monologue in a way. Like there's a lot more moving parts in terms of who's doing what and where other people are going to need to come in and stuff. Whereas when you're writing a book as an author, you are in complete control and you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I really think that's totally true, Jamie. Yeah, I think so. With screenwriting, it's really, really hard. And I'm not saying that writing a novel is easy. All writing is difficult. It's all hard, but that doesn't mean you don't have to enjoy it. Sometimes with screenwriting, it really is pulling your hair out. It's really, really difficult. And, and then if you find you're more likely to have a story problem in a screenplay, I think, than you are maybe in a novel. But I've only written one novel for first person, so I don't feel very qualified to say that. But but I think you can find your way more. With a screenplay, if you get to page 75 and suddenly it wasn't, it's not working that right way. The problem was probably on page 20, and you've got to rewrite that now. So it's not like that with a novel, I don't think. Well, not first person. I don't know what it's like to write third person thriller. I'm sure thriller writers probably, and again, I don't know this for sure, but I'm assuming if I was going to write a thriller or a detective story, you would have to plot. I mean, to some level.
That's what I thought. And then I've interviewed a few thriller authors who kind of go on a similar system to you, that they sort of say there are milestones, but it's wild, and then they'll get to the end and then be like, right, now how do I fix it?
Yeah. So it's a little bit like a screenplay. It's a little bit like a screenplay, where they have to go and then add things in and layer things in. Because I think with the written word, because also like I write longhand first, whether it's screenplay or a novel, and I think that whole that feeling of discovery and artistry or whatever it is, it feels like pen on paper. There's a lovely feel to it, and you're turning the pages and you're writing quickly and you're going back and crossing things out, and you're finding your story in a way. But with screenwriting, you don't have. Well, you can. I mean, you could write long with screenwriting maybe and write 180 pages and then go in and just try and edit it all down. But I wouldn't recommend it. But we all write in different ways, and all writers are different. And for me, the most exciting thing about this was it was first person, and I just really, I had a lot of fun. Being her.
And it comes through in the book. The book is very fun to read, and it's funny whilst also being sort of quite serious and touching on serious tones and character shifts. And speaking of screenplays, this book has already been optioned for a television series with MGM.
That's right.
Will you be involved in that adaptation?
Wow, that is the $1 million question, Jamie. Okay. If I have anything to do with it, I'm on a plane. No, listen, the truth is, right, so it's actually Orion Television, who are part of MGM. They're owned by them. They optioned it early on, so it was a preempt deal, hadn't been sent out. I had a chat with them, which is quite funny because there's a screenwriter in the back of my head going, talking to television producers in America, tell them about your screenplays and your TV pilots now. Tell them, just drop it in. But it would have been totally inappropriate and rude to anything like that. And I was trying to act cool. I don't know whether I pulled it off. But anyway, we were having a chat, and they were really fabulous, really smart, very clever, had great thoughts about the book and how they wanted to do a series and everything. I mean, it really was a no-brainer. But what I said to them was, I'd really like to be in the story room. Please. And they were like, absolutely, yeah, no problem. I was like, yeah, it's only an extra chair at the table. And they said, that's great, but it's not in my contract, Jamie. And the other thing they said was that I could help to write the pilot, but again, it's not in my contract. And I wouldn't have put that in because I don't want to hinder the project.
Yeah.
The odds are against you. So many things are optioned every year and only a handful of stuff gets made. I mean, we think that television is making everything, you know, it's still hugely hard and tough to get anything made. It takes a miracle, really, and a lot of planets aligning and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just waiting to hear. I think where they're at the moment is they're looking for a showrunner. And they're really hard to come by, I think. And then once they have that, it really is, you know, it'll be up to them, really. Yeah. So I'm just going to wait. I mean, I'm not, to be honest, Jamie, like I'm not very good at hustling. And I wish I was better because screenwriter, you've got to be able to do that. And I'm just not very good at it. I just wish I was better. I give the impression that I am, apparently.
Okay.
But I'm not.
That's half the battle, right?
Yeah, because I wonder if someone else would have said to them, oh, by the way, I've got some screenplays and some TV pilots. Would you read them? Maybe someone else would have said that to them. I don't know. But my instincts were, don't be rude and keep your cool, you know? But they were really lovely. And I think it's in very good hands.
Okay, great. So you're sort of cautiously optimistic that you might get to be involved, but if it's not going to be that much, then that's okay.
Well, the first thing is it going to get made?
Is it?
Because sometimes people get a deal when they sell the rights to their book.
Yeah.
They get before they even sign, they've got the deal and it's going to be made.
Yeah.
So that's not the case with Hotel 21, but that's fine.
We'll see.
I'm
Fingers
just
crossed.
so happy. And also because I thought this isn't a screenplay. And then I was talking to them and they were like, well, this chapter's like an episode and this chapter's like an episode. And I was thinking, I suppose, you know, my just naturally my instincts were probably to write like that. You know, you know, so
that makes sense.
Yeah. But no, it is. I'm not, I am obviously, it would be wonderful, but
we'll see.
Just waiting. Yeah, we will see. Watch this space.
Watch this space. And before we get on to the final question, I do often like to ask my guests about advice that they could give sort of aspiring writers. And I have far fewer screenwriters on the podcast than I do authors. So I wonder if I might ask if you had any advice for aspiring screenwriters looking to get into writing for film and television.
Yeah, I would say this. It's a really, really tough world and business. It's full of near misses and disappointment. So what I would say is you're allowed one day to lick your wounds and have all your negative thoughts about, am I any good at this and should I be doing this and when's it going to happen? And then you get back up the following day and sit down and get on with it. Because that you really got to have a thick skin and you've got to just focus on the craft, focus on becoming a better writer. Those are your goals. And when you've written one thing and you're sending it out, get on with the next thing. You know, there's too many people just get obsessed with this one script they've written and I need to send this out. And why does anybody want it? And why does it? Or it gets, you know, I've had things that have had, you know, people that are really like excited about it and it's optioned. And I go, God, it's actually going to get made. And then nothing happens.
Yeah.
So you just have to go, well, that's just the business. Next, you know. So it is kind of an irony that I'm having success with I mean, I do write. It's my job. I write for TV and film or whatever. You know, I do make a living. So I'm incredibly grateful. But my goal is always to write screenplays that are going to get made. TV pilots are going to get picked up. Mm-hmm. So it is. It's a life disappointment and then Mrs. Jamie. I don't recommend it.
Well, I mean, it's funny because a lot of that is very applicable to writing a novel and also submitting your novel to publishers and things like that. So
it's painful.
All around.
Painful,
I think
painful.
most creative industries, that is quite applicable to.
Yeah, one day of misery, be as miserable as you possibly can, cry, go for walks, and, feel sorry for yourself. But then get over it as quickly as you can, because it's not worth the energy and it's not worth the time you're going to waste in being, so full of angst. It's just not worth it, because something will happen. The next screenplay you write could be it. So you just got to keep going. Yeah,
and each time you write anything, you're honing the craft, you're getting better. So hopefully everything you write is better than the last thing. So you get there eventually.
Yeah. And you just have to learn all the time. Why didn't this particular story resonate? Or you might get notes back from somebody, and they could be pretty damning, maybe, or they at least feel like they are. But you need to learn from that. You need to take it on the chin and go, right, do better. It's tough. It's really tough.
It's tough. You've got to persevere. Things. Awesome. Well, that's great advice all round. And that brings us on to the final question, which, as always, is the often dreaded, if you were stranded on a desert island with a single book, which book would you take with you?
Yeah, so I knew you were going to ask me this, and I've been agonizing over it, asking all my friends, what book would you take? And sometimes they say a book I haven't even heard of, and I'm like, oh God, I haven't even heard of that book. So what I decided to say is, and I've really thought about this long and hard, Jamie, is that I would take Moby Dick, because I haven't read it yet. I've never read it. And it's about, I think I like the themes in it. and it's a big book. It's big enough. So I'd read it. I'd bring that, because the other thing is I have a lot of favorite books I've read many, many, many times.
Yeah.
And I think I'd want something new and something about the sea. So yeah, that's
great.
what I will bring. But I have had several options, Jamie, along the way.
Okay.
I hope I'm never stranded on a desert island. Oh my God, I'd be so lonely.
Or at least if you were, you had like a library with you.
Or a note. I'd rather bring a notepad and pen.
Okay.
Yeah, than a book. If I had to choose,
write your own book.
Well, yeah, I'll just have something so that I could just write. Yeah, whatever it was. Probably get really good about writing about what sand looked like or something.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if a publisher will pick that up. But...
No, but you see, it really wouldn't matter, because I'm on a desert island.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows?
You'd know everything about that sand. Amazing. Well, great choice. It's always nice to have some classics on the book. There's a reason they're on the island. There's a reason these books become classics, because they are timeless. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and telling us all about your work and the new book, Hotel 21, and your experiences. It's been really interesting chatting with you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for your great questions.
Oh, well, my pleasure. And you can't really find Senta online, but Hotel 21 is out in all the usual places. You can go to your local bookshop and grab it. And to make sure you don't miss an episode of this podcast, follow along on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. To support the show, head over to the Patreon page. And for more bookish shenanigans, check out my other podcast, The Chosen Ones and Other Tropes. Thanks again to Senta, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll catch you in the next episode.